I don't know if you've seen this one. I saw it in a couple of media outlets, but it hasn't got much attention. And when we talk about all the things the Trump Justice Department is doing, this one is probably lower on the priority list, but it's important. So this story involves a Hindu sect. And I just want to show you, here's their name. It is so hard for me to pronounce, and I am brown. But check this out. The Bochasanwasi, Akshar, Purushottam, Swaminarayan, Sanstha. I screwed it up. Whoops. Let's go by the acronym BAPS. It's BAPS. It's a Hindu sect, and I just embarrassed myself. But the BAPS people, it's a sect of Hinduism. If you know anything about them, it is that they make some of the most beautiful temples you will ever see. This is their actual website where they say, these are our temples. Look at our global network. And if you look at this, this is in Nairobi, right over here. Looks amazing. This is one in Abu Dhabi, right over here. And so they have these giant, gorgeous temples all over the world. And this is kind of the big thing they are known for. So I live not far from Chicago, and there is a BAPS temple not far from where I live too. My family is not Hindu, but we've driven past that temple, and very much I've had relatives who are like, stop by the BAPS temple because we want to take a look at it because it's gorgeous. Like, it really is. If you were from another country and you were coming and you were like, what do you check out? You know how you go to, like, you're in Europe and you want to see the castles. Well, if there's a BAPS temple nearby, they make them really huge because they can, and they're gorgeous. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because a few years ago, they were building a new BAPS temple in New Jersey, in Robbinsville, New Jersey in 2021. And this one was in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. And the reason we know that is because there was a lawsuit filed by a bunch of people against the BAPS people. That's the simplest way I could put that. But basically, what that lawsuit, a federal lawsuit, said is that the BAPS denomination was basically using forced labor to build that temple in Robbinsville. It was the largest Hindu temple in the United States. And in order to build it, according to the lawsuit, they brought in dozens of low caste workers from India. They paid them about $1.20 an hour, and they forced them to live on temple property. They brought more than 200 people to that facility, even though only 6 men were named in that initial lawsuit. But according to the lawsuit, if I could find that in this article, this is what the New York Times wrote when they published this. Here we go. Whoops, let me try that again. Yeah, this is what the New York Times wrote. They were brought to the United States on religious visas, or R1 visas, temporary visas used for clergy and lay religious workers such as missionaries, and presented to the U.S. government as volunteers, according to the lawsuit, according to the claim. They were asked to sign several documents, often in English, and instructed to tell U.S. embassy staffers that they were skilled carvers or decorative painters, the complaint said. But wait, it gets worse. Lawyers for the men, however, say they did manual labor on the site, working nearly 13 hours a day lifting large stones, operating cranes and other heavy machinery. They don't know how cranes work. Building roads and storm sewers, digging ditches and shoveling snow, all for the equivalent of about $450 a month. They were paid $50 in cash, with the rest deposited in accounts in India, the complaint said. So this is what the lawsuit said in 2021, right? Federal agents then raided the property in 2021 around the same time. They removed 90 workers from the site. The temple always denied any wrongdoing. Now, there's also a political angle to this, because as the New York Times explained at the time as well, BAPS has very strong ties with Prime Minister Modi of India, who is a Hindu nationalist. And Modi even spoke at the funeral for the denomination's spiritual leader years prior to this raid happening. And one of the things that this denomination did to please Prime Minister Modi is that there was an Islamic mosque that was destroyed by Hindu extremists in 1992. What do you do with that land? Because that temple, that mosque, was destroyed. Well, to please Narendra Modi, the BAPS people said, why don't we build a Hindu temple right over here? That's the sort of stuff we're talking about. So, this civil lawsuit is going through the courts. It hits a few snags. And again, there's two things going on. The federal government raids the place because they're doing an investigation, but there's also this lawsuit going through the courts saying there was something illegal happening. So the civil lawsuit's going through the courts. There are some problems. More plaintiffs are added, but some of them say, can you get me off this lawsuit, saying we never wanted to join this lawsuit, which looks bad for the people suing. But because the government was investigating this matter, because they raided the place and took some people out, the whole lawsuit was just put on hold for years until that inquiry could be completed. So guess what? Why am I telling you all this now? Because last week, BAPS officials found out that the federal investigation into what they were doing was completed, and that the Department of Justice decided, we're not going to do anything about this. That's it. And the reason we know that is this is the statement they issued on their site 1 week ago as I'm taking this. Announcement from BAPS North America, September 18th. The BAPS group in the United States welcomes the decision by the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey to close their investigation of BAPS and the creation of the temple in New Jersey. The U.S. government's decision to end this investigation sends a clear and powerful message in support of what our organization has maintained from the outset, that this temple, a place of peace, service, and devotion, was built through the love, dedication, and volunteer service of thousands of devotees from all walks of life. Yeah, so that's the statement from the organization. To be clear, that statement does not say we did not use cheap labor. It just says the Department of Justice is not looking into us anymore. And I am wondering whether Trump's affinity for fellow autocrats like Modi had anything to do with his administration dropping this particular case. I don't know if that is pure speculation on my part. But you wonder if Trump wants to get Modi to like him, because he totally does. This is one way to get on Modi's good side, right? And of course, the Department of Justice basically works as Trump's personal lawyers now, even though they're not supposed to. So if he wants this case shut down, I'm sure Pam Bondi would shut the case down, regardless of what the facts say, because that's how they run the Justice Department now. Now, here's the other side to this. If the federal government's investigation is over, what happens to the lawsuit that was filed? Technically, that can now continue through the courts. But I don't know if that's going to do anything at this point. Because, I mean, the construction of that temple in New Jersey finished in 2023, a couple years ago. And since that time, the advocates for the temple have defended everything that has happened. They said, hey, what these workers said they went through in the lawsuit, you guys are misinterpreting everything. They were volunteers. They were doing it out of sheer love of the faith. This is amazing. This is from the Religion News Service, which writes about religion stories. Look at this quotation they got. This is an article about what I just told you. DOJ drops forced labor case against largest Hindu temple in America. Look at this incredible quotation here. Yogi Trivedi, a scholar of Hinduism at Columbia University, nice, and BAPS practitioner, said cultural and religious mistranslation has complicated the labor allegations. The concept of Siva, a central tenet of this sect of Hinduism, does not translate directly to Western concepts of volunteerism. The purpose of Siva is not to just complete a project, he told RNS. It's not just to provide a community service or just to be a humanitarian. It's actually to better yourself and come closer to the divine by realizing yourself, your soul. When I saw thousands of Sivaks give so much of their life to essentially move their families here to come and serve, I couldn't but feel remorse at the fact that their service was misinterpreted, or the concept that drove them to be the way they are now was being misunderstood. I don't know, that would be a lot easier to believe if the initial lawsuit did not say some really insane things such as this. This is from that 2021 lawsuit. Let me share this with you. Look at number 9. At the Robbinsville temple and elsewhere, workers were prohibited from speaking with outside visitors to the temple. Failure to obey this rule would result in workers' meager pay being reduced even further, the workers being sent back to India or other disciplinary action. At times, supervisors told the workers that the police would arrest them if they left. One R1 worker died while he was subjected to forced labor at this temple. The defendants overseeing the temple construction then retaliated against workers who organized to demand, among other things, that dead workers' remains be treated according to his and not the defendants' religious rituals, and that the defendants improve working conditions. So that's what they're saying in the lawsuit. Does that sound like people who came there voluntarily because they just wanted to better themselves and their souls? What is going on there? Here's one other part of the lawsuit. Check this out. Number 11. They're talking about the lower castes and how they were recruited. But look at this. At the Robbinsville temple and elsewhere, temple leadership did what they could to remind these marginalized workers of their place in the social hierarchy. One defendant, for example, called the workers worms, thus exacerbating the psychological coercion the workers experienced. Doesn't sound like volunteers, and I'm not sure what the misinterpretation is. It's very much, I'm not trying to make a perfect analogy here, but sometimes you hear defendants like white Christian nationalists defend slavery by saying they had good masters. They were part of the family. They loved working with their masters for their masters. And it's like, no, it's slavery. I don't care what they were saying outwardly. They had no other choice in the matter. So don't tell me these guys are like just doing it for the love of the game and the love of the faith, when the lawsuit itself is saying some of these guys were not members of the faith. And look at the conditions they were put in. And where in here does it say they really had a choice in the matter? So if allegations like this are shown to be true, it would defeat the narrative that the workers were doing their jobs willingly and voluntarily. Okay, and it's not just one scholar defending all of this. I was shocked to see this too. This is from the president, the executive director of the Hindu American Foundation, which is a big group. And this person essentially called the entire lawsuit a witch hunt. She celebrated the end of the Department of Justice's investigation. And look at what this says. This is unbelievable. It is over. The BAPS investigation is closed with no charges filed. By the way, this is my Indian accent. For those of you wondering, I only do one accent. It is this one if I'm trying to pretend to be somebody else. Now we pick up the pieces. The largest Hindu temple in America was raided by a literal cavalcade of federal agents and police. Hindu monks were roused from bed in their sanctuary with guns pointed at their heads. The BAPS community was forced to endure false, horrific allegations of forced labor and casteism. The New York Times was given exclusive access to carry the federal raid live, raising serious questions as to why the media was alerted before temple devotees to ignite a trial by fire before the federal investigation even started. a fringe Hindu group, along with a Rutgers professor and other anti-Hindu orgs, piled on to exploit the caste angle. Will we ever see an apology for this monstrous, catastrophic episode? We won't hold our breath. First of all, reporters get tipped off about raids all the time, not just in this case. That is not a conspiracy. That's how good reporters do things sometimes. But also, again, just because the DOJ's investigation has dropped doesn't mean nothing happened. It could very well just mean Trump's in charge and they don't want to investigate this because they don't want to piss off their friend, the autocrat, Narendra Modi. The lawsuit is not over yet. And the lawsuit has not been dismissed, or a judge or a jury has not ruled against the plaintiffs in that case. I don't know what the right answer is here. I'm not saying the allegations are true. I don't know. But if the allegations are true, don't rely on the Justice Department dropping their case as proof that the people at this temple did nothing wrong. It's not the same thing. So this whole thing, it's a chilling reminder that religious zealotry can sometimes mask exploitation, right? So these BAPS temples, they appear to be a monument to Hindu devotion, but this lawsuit from 2021 suggests that it was built on the suffering of at least a handful, maybe a lot of handfuls, of marginalized workers who say they were coerced into doing this and they really had no choice. And I don't know how you misinterpret that to pretend they all wanted to do this to build up their souls. I'm not surprised if the Trump administration doesn't want to look into this because they don't want to offend their ideological allies in India. But there are a lot of voices denouncing the lawsuit as well, and they are rationalizing this abuse in ways that may not age well. And we'll find out soon enough. I don't think anyone should be celebrating how vulnerable people may have been sacrificed for this project. And instead of hiring and paying professional constructors, which is what they should have done, the best case scenario in this situation is that temple officials just took advantage of willing volunteers, which really doesn't make me feel any better. If they have the sort of money to build these temples, then they have the sort of money to hire workers for a real wage. You don't need to pull people out of India to do this stuff. I hope this lawsuit continues. We will find out what the judge says about it. But again, the bottom line is the Department of Justice not looking into this anymore because it's run by Republicans. The lawsuit has not been tossed out of court yet. But if you've ever been to any of these BAPS temples, which look beautiful, just remember there's a way they were made and the story behind it. Just like everything that looks beautiful, as the, I think, was it Louis C.K. joke goes, like the pyramids, they're amazing. Guess what? They were built with slaves. Guess what? Your iPhones, they're amazing. Use them all the time. Same thing. Okay, I'm going to stop there. What other questions we got here? That said, you have a clear-cut case of human trafficking and wage violations, allegedly, and nothing is done. What is stopping anyone else from not paying people? Well, it helps if you have allies in the White House, apparently. And again, these are all allegations, but the fact that the DOJ is not looking into it anymore and not even issuing a reason for why they're not looking into it anymore, that should concern everybody. And that's why I hope this lawsuit gets taken seriously. It deserves it. I smell a dismissal, bought and paid for. That's what it looks like. I don't know. Again, allegations everywhere. I'm a lot more interested in what happens to the people. You mean the people who were brought in to build these things? Yeah, I don't know if they just went back to India now. If they're somewhere else, I assume they went back. But like, well, what's their situation now? I don't even know if they're necessarily safe. Yeah, it's concerning, and we don't know the answer.